All right, everybody. Thank you for returning to our YouTube channel, or if you're new, appreciate you joining us. My name is Brian. This is Matthew Creedican, a former Navy SEAL, and we are your hosts. And today we want to talk. Oh, and also let me say real quick, we're part of an organization called Technology United for Ukraine. If you'd like to join us and provide technological innovations for the Ukrainian military, or just help out with our organization, everybody is welcome. Link is in the description. All right, I want to get right into this here because this is kind of wild. This is a thermite drone. I call it the demon drone, and it's dropping thermite. So let's take a watch of this, and then Matthew, you're going to give us your kind of feedback on what you're watching here. So let's watch it go into this trench. This is a Ukrainian drone that is dropping thermite into a Russian position. I can imagine that is just thermite. I guess when it gets on, you're right, Matthew, it's difficult to get off.
I mean, I've never had any drop on me, but I imagine it's generally a reaction, but an oxidizing reaction between, in this case, it's probably aluminum and rust. So you're basically making steel, molten metal.
Yeah, it's
more about the heat than it is about the fire with that stuff. So yeah, you drop some really hot stuff, it sets things on fire.
And it's really creepy how it looks like it's walking, right? To me, it looks like it's literally walking. I mean, it's just wild. So that's one of the, I don't know if it's a newer drone or one they're just talking about. Then the other one, which we also have a fiber project, which we can talk about because fiber optic drones are old drones. And they are been worked on for a while, but we are also working on fiber optic drones for the Ukrainians. And here is a video that came out from the Russians. This is in the Kursk region. Now, fiber drones, if you don't know, cannot be jammed. So, they have they're tethered. They have a very thin as a human here, line that comes out of the drone itself, and you can't jam it. And I know Matthew knows a bit about that because he's worked with us on these fiber drones. And but they're quite devastating. The Russians are deploying them. Matthew, what do you see strategically with a fiber drone?
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty I don't think game changing. That's what you would put on the title so you can get better thumbnails.
Yeah.
No, definitely be important because it can't be jammed. Not with any of the typical. It could maybe fall prey to a very strong EMI close up, but the likelihood of that's pretty low. So as far as the communication link goes, it's pretty much unjammable, and because of that, you can do a lot more profiles that you normally couldn't. I still think you're going to be limited by range to some degree. The way that the fiber spools out, the height of what you can fly. You're going to get some freewheeling pieces. So you're going to be probably stuck. I mean, look, a lot of it's going to depend on the price you want to pay and how much development you want to do on the spooling mechanism. I suspect, if we could get a hold of how they spooled the missiles from the TOW launcher, those kind of spooling systems, which it's like we have all the right tech. It's just hidden somewhere back in the 80s or 70s when they first developed that. Maybe there's some engineer in retirement that remembers making that system. But right now it's kind of appears to be, I haven't seen all the different systems. It appears to be like outside spooling, which probably has a speed limit to some degree.
Yeah.
But I fully expect at some point to see missiles, like TOW missiles, the version, but just much lower cost. Those things are definitely doable.
And we're obviously, and as we said, we're worked on these. We have them going up to the front lines, and they got to be inexpensive because the money isn't there. So we make a kit for $250 add-on to any drone. So that's where the war has to be.
Yeah, and right now I would say for as much success as they've had at North, they run the risk of having their more cracked troops attrited by systems like this because it's just not a good defense. So if you fly a fiber drone at an enemy unit, and basically you have one chance to shoot it down with a shotgun or maybe some machine gun fire. After that, you're going to lose a piece of equipment or maybe some personnel. Because there's just, the common way to stop these things are jammers, and it solves that problem. It also opens up other avenues of attack where you normally wouldn't have line of sight. It doesn't matter so much on line of sight with this. You fly various different profiles. So, yeah, it's a dangerous weapon for both sides. And like so many things in this war, it's not about having a couple. It's about being able to produce a whole lot and get the mass and scale.
So if anybody out there wants to donate, we'll get some units that can be donated to for the fiber drones. We're going to be doing a massive campaign for that soon. All right, so let's go into the next thing. Let's talk about the Kursk area. Just talk again. We want to mention that the Ukrainians did enter Kursk through this area here, which is west from west from the main offensive. And one question I have for you is right here the other day, there was a Ukrainian Special Forces unit, obviously deep in, because this is the border of Ukraine and Russia, deep into enemy territory. They took out a convoy. What's going on with them deep penetrations? I mean, you have an extensive special operations background. What's going on there?
Well, I think we talked about this before. One of the things that an offensive like this opens up is the ability for more maneuver warfare. Now, you might not be able to do that at large scale. They did that at larger scale early. Coordinating large scale movements is difficult. So this is where special forces, they can actually get out and kind of stretch their legs. Before they opened up the more static lines and defenses, you might be able to penetrate into the enemy backfield, but you always have the problem of how do you get back? And this isn't like the NATO kind of U.S. version where you have air supremacy. You can just fly some helicopters in and get pulled out. Once you're in, you're kind of stuck with this. So with these kind of broken lines, that's going to give the Ukrainians a lot more opportunity to push their special forces deep into enemy territory, go after high value targets, and then be able to exfiltrate with like a high degree of success.
Will we see more of this, you think? Will we see more of this going on? Will this get
you'll see more of this for the next couple of weeks until the Russians can kind of clamp down. I mean, probably what you're seeing right now, the Russians have built their defensive lines further back. If you go north on that map, they put in kind of a defensive line, and they've built it further enough back that it won't be harassed or destroyed easily. And right now they're just trying to buy time so they can institute that and basically lock the Ukrainians in a box. A new box. It'll be a bigger box, but they'll lock them in a box, and then they can kind of control the area and slowly tighten it down. I'm sure that's basically what their goal is. Oh.
And this is where you're talking about. This is where, just so people have a perspective, what you're talking. This is about where I think the defensive lines have been created. They might go a little bit more this way here, but this is what you're talking about. So the Ukrainians are operating in this area, but there are extensive defenses here. And I believe 30,000 troops were now sent to this area. And I think they comprise of veterans from Ukraine war and also just some conscripts. Yeah.
And that's, there's, let's say a lot of people that don't necessarily like the Russians, given, or like the rulers of Russia. It's like, to me, this isn't a fight just like Russia, Ukraine. It's tyrants versus people that desire to be free. So freedom versus tyranny. And there's people that want to be free in Russia as well. So, however much those people want to be free, they have opportunity to help the cause. And let's just say there's a fair amount of them out there. So,
what kind of problems do you think they're going to run into with the conscripts? These are guys that weren't supposed to be fighting. It's part of their legal system that conscripts are supposed to do more logistics and support, not really fight on the front lines, and they're very poorly trained and poorly motivated. What kind of effect do you think? And I mean, it's kind of obvious, but from your perspective, how do you see this battle evolving here if they have these conscripts? Do you see a lot falling apart soon?
I mean, look, if the Ukrainians can muster their forces in a concentrated push and continue that through more than one line, and strike multiple points or strike at the center of command of the Russians, then it might fall apart. It kind of remains to be seen what the Ukrainians can put together. I don't think you can count them out by any means. So, really don't know what's going to happen here. But they have a good chance to create a lot more chaos. I mean, there's kind of this split going on between Pokrovsk area and the gains the Russians have made down there versus how much can the Ukrainians push up north, and then where are the leftover troops? Because if you look at the forums, even the Russians are kind of speculating that they've been allowing the Ukrainians have been allowing this offensive to take place in the south so that they can cut the Russians off. I think that's probably a lot of rumors, but you just don't know. There are basically unaccounted for Ukrainian units and they are generally on these different rotation schedules, so they flow in and out. So it's normal for them to not be on the game board, so to speak. But it's also not obvious as to where they might be or what they might be doing. If you go down on the map, go south.
Let me do this. I'll go to the map here. Nope, I can go here. So down south, I look right down. You mean in Ukraine, right?
Pokrovsk. It's the kind of center of the country to the east.
Right here. What you're talking about is exactly right here.
Right.
And
yeah.
So you're saying, so say that again about Pokrovsk and what's going on.
Yeah, so we haven't talked about it maybe lately on this channel, but the Russians have made, so if you look over to the east, there's Avdiivka, which fell a few months ago, which had held out for many, since 2014, basically. There you go.
Yeah, Avdiivka, right here.
Yeah. So that pocket had held a long time. It was a well-defended spot. The Russians have been able to amass enough troops and artillery and drones. They're able to take it over, and then the Ukrainians weren't able to muster any deep defenses, and they've punched this salient. You see that where he drove the line here in the last few months. They've been
31 kilometers they've gone.
Yeah. So they were going slowly, and they just recently got a lot faster. They broke through key positions, and now they're headed to the key city of Pokrovsk, and it is a very key city to the whole eastern resupply route. So you can see that main fork right there, that feeds everything to the east. So if that falls, there's two reasons. If that falls, there's not a lot of easily defensive terrain after that, and the Russians are going to push even deeper. So it's extremely critical that the Ukrainians basically hold that until wintertime, and they can basically get their reserves trained and then reman positions and solidify their defenses. As that Pokrovsk really and the surrounding cities really should not fall. There's enough, if you're asking for defensive terrain, there's defensive terrain there in the form of the buildings, and there's some high ground. That should be hard for them to take. The Russians had some pretty good success. Last day, the Ukrainians have counterattacked and had some blunting effects. So we hope to see them basically threaten the Russians enough that they have to solidify their gains and then allow the Ukrainians to dig in. There's some scandals around the Pokrovsk defensive zone where they didn't basically the money that went into so was supposed to build trenches and networks and reinforce positions kind of disappeared. And the interesting thing, and this is the bright spot in my opinion, the Ukrainians have been criticizing this much more publicly lately. So
Yes,
there's
they
been
have.
a lot more public criticism of the mismanagement practices, and I see that as a good thing because shining a light on that is the way you go forward. And those are the kind of things that, as you clean those up, are the kind of things that set the country apart from a tyranny. So, I mean, this is really the hope is that as we continue this battle, we continue the internal battle for reducing corruption. So, yeah, it's high hopes, but we have to hold that position. We have to hold.
Yeah, and a lot you've talked about with all your experience, all the years you've been over there on the front lines, everything's communication has been the major issue that has been complained about. It's a lack of communication and listening to the front line. So definitely something that has to be improved. Here is a little idea to give people an idea. I'm going to back this up, a couple weeks here. So this is starting on the July 16th. We're going to go from here, and you can just see from July till now all the progress that the Russians have made. Now, at catastrophic losses. I mean, there's probably thousands of vehicles, definitely tens of thousands of Russian lives have been lost in this area. But just to give somebody, people an idea of what's going on, though, and positive for the Ukrainians is right here, this area here, which is New York. The Ukrainians just the other day, if we go backwards, they pushed the Russians out of here. So if we blow this up, I can pull this down here, right here, New York area right here. The Russians were pushed out. We go forward, boom. And they've been holding this push for the last couple days. So definitely some interesting stuff. And we got to keep an eye on this area. And that we will. Let me see here. We have the last thing I wanted to kind of talk with you about is, was it here? Nope. Let me go to my map. It's in the other map. I got too many maps open here. One, this is an interesting map. This kind of shows you all the units deployed. This would be in Kursk area. And as we go down here, you don't hear anybody really talking a lot about this push south of Kursk. So this is south of Kursk and just west. This is the Belgorod region, but west of the city. And if we look, we will see that the Kharkiv offensive is right there. Let me get rid of this. So this is Kharkiv, but the Ukrainians have been very tight-lipped. This is the unit that's there. It's a Territorial Defense Brigade, the 252, but you don't hear much. Do you think they're doing some very deep special operations in this area?
That's just speculation. I think they're probably like anything probing different sectors, either to pull attention and drive their reinforcements over there, so they have openings in other sectors, or just ill-planned attacks that are meant to be break through, but they're just turn into grind fests.
Okay.
And the Ukrainians have done this in the past, where they have a mission, drive forward. Their command structure is such, they basically didn't have a plan B. And they just keep pushing with plan A because they don't want to look like they're quitting to their command structure. It could be that. I mean, I have seen, it seems like there are some bright spots where they've gotten better, where they'll try one place, they'll try another place, they'll try a different plan. Or they'll just adjust materially and significantly adjust to the problem. So they've been getting better at that. But there's still a significant amount of Ukrainian commanders that are inexperienced to the point of just do one thing and keep doing it. If it doesn't work, and not because you know what you're doing, but just so you can show your command staff that you tried something, that you're not a pussy. Pretty
Yeah.
destructive to your forces, and this is where we really hope the Allies help with training on the officer corps level, and that those kind of things are prioritized. There's the concept of battle space commanders, where you have one guy, one group in charge of an area, and they kind of direct everything. You might have multiple battalions, multiple platoons, and from different areas, all in the same area, but you have one guy in charge of everything, and they help coordinate everything, and they make sure everybody's talking. And these are critical things Ukrainians need to keep incorporating into their upper command structure.
Now, something else I wanted to mention before we get off of, we're done with what our talk today, is right here in Voronezh. I think that's how you say it. This is the city. This is part of I guess their what they call an Oblast, the region. There was a very critical ammo dump that was hit, and apparently they had North Korean missiles and other different types of critical ammo that was there. And I imagine that was going to probably supply this area and maybe here. But most likely it was going towards this area. They took that out with a pretty massive drone attack. Do you foresee these attacks really having an impact? Are they enough right now to cripple these logistics and these supply depots from being able to support the front lines, or are they minimal? Like, what's your take on the destruction of the recent, a lot of the ammo depots behind enemy lines?
Look, if you have the capability of destroying this stuff, sometimes you might sit on the knowledge that they're making a supply dump. And then if you have reliable systems that you can hit it with, then you launch them all in one day and say blow up like 4 ammo dumps. But if you don't have that capability and you notice something and you just strike it right away, that also works. It just comes down to what the reliability is of your capability to attack their systems. And yeah, you need to just to destroy stuff. But it has an additional benefit, is that as long as you're attacking those systems, it makes it much harder to efficiently distribute their weapon systems. Because you think about, if you're the guy in charge of moving 10,000 rockets, you're going to have to set up, like, if you can pilot all in one place, that's pretty easy to figure out, right? You just take all 10,000 rockets and you take them to one place and you make a big pile of them and you make it all real close together, so you don't have to have very many guards and they don't get stolen. Easy day, right? Well, yeah, easy day until the enemy blows it up. So now if they're constantly blowing up your stockpiles, now you have to spread it all out. Once you start spreading it all out, that takes a lot more fuel, a lot more coordination. You might lose some, you significantly increase the friction of the enemy from, the time it takes to distribute, collect, redistribute, and put a lot more wear on all their systems. So yeah, you get multiple knock-on benefits. I think anybody that worked with the U.S. military kind of understands like the kind of pressure attacks on your supply lines cause, and the amount of capital that gets spent just to protect systems. So yeah, it's critical to keep attacking it. So
yeah, I mean, interesting stuff developing. Hopefully they keep moving forward with these attacks, and good to see you back. As everybody knows, Matthew's over there doing some things, but he's back on the channel, and you'll probably see more of us together here. By the way, I want to thank everybody for coming. Remember, Technology United for Ukraine. We're always looking for engineers, scientists, technologists, or just anybody who wants to help out with our channel, with our organization. Link is in the description. All right, everyone. Slava Ukraini.